Hello everyone, welcome to the second part of our Unit 14, the recovery of retail loans of our Module B. So, in the previous session, we discussed about the classification of the irregular loan accounts, doubtful assets, substandard assets, loss assets, the provisioning requirements. Today, we'll be covering the recovery policy of the banks. How do the banks utilize the SARFAESI Act? What are the provisions of the DRT Act and how do Lok Adalats work for the recovery of the NPAs? So these topics we are going to study today and they're again very important for your exam. So make sure that you watch till the end. Alright. So starting with the recovery policy, there should be a clearly spelled out policy that the banks follow. The fundamental assumptions and approaches should be clearly communicated to the customers as well. The bank should not follow any practices that are unduly coercive in the collection of dues. It should be built on courtesy, fair treatment, and persuasion. For example, some general guidelines. The customer would be contacted ordinarily at the place of her or his own choice. Identity and authority of the persons who are going to represent the bank for follow up and recovery of dues should be made known to the borrowers. Banks would respect the privacy of its borrowers. All written and verbal communication should be in simple business language. All the records should be maintained. When giving notice to the borrowers, reminders or visits by the bank's representatives, again, without giving due notice in writing, it should not be done. Also, the repossession of security only should be aimed at recovery of dues, not to deprive the borrower of the property. Alright, so these are the things that the banks need to follow. Now, before the SARFAESI Act came into force, banks had to take the legal recourse. They had to apply to the civil courts to get their loans recovered. And it was a very tiresome process. It took a very long time to recover the dues and it hampered with the banking business. Thus, with an aim to provide a structured platform to the banking sector for managing its mounting NPA stocks and keep pace with the international financial institutions, the securitization and reconstruction of financial assets and enforcement of security interest act was put in place. When this act was enacted in the year 2002 to legalize this securitization and reconstruction of the financial asset as well as enforcement of security interest. So now, banks are enabled to realize the long term assets, manage the problems of liquidity, asset liability mismatches, all of it without any intervention of court. Without any intervention of court, the powers to recover the dues are given directly to the banks. Alright, so what are the important activities in the credit market? Securitization of financial assets, reconstruction of financial assets. Banks, when they give out loans, they take security. So, recognition of any interest created in the security, power to enforce such a security without the intervention of courts. Also, there's the provision of setting up of the central registry, that is the SARFAESI. So now all the charges that are created, registered, modified, satisfied, everything is registered with the SARFAESI. SARFAESI also maintains a record, right? So any claim to any debt or receivable secured by way of mortgage or immovable property, hypothecation, beneficial interest, any right or interest in any intangible asset, all of these are covered under the definition of financial asset. Alright, so now the banks and the financial institutions, they are empowered to enforce security in the event of default without the intervention of the courts. Neither civil court nor the DRT, without any intervention, they can themselves send notice to the customers. They can themselves take possession of the property as well as sell the property. Now, this also it is a skillful purpose, it is a skillful job. So either the banks can themselves do it, or they can take help of the asset reconstruction companies. They are the special purpose vehicle to help the banks in this process. Now, under the SARFAESI Act, there are two options available with the bank. Either they can themselves enforce the security interest, they will issue notice of 60 days upon the declaration of NPA. Within the 60 days, if the customer does not repay the complete loan amount, the bank can take possession of the pledged assets, they can lease it or sell it off to recover the loan. This is first option. Second option is that banks, they will sell their NPAs and they will receive cash plus security receipts. They will sell the NPAs to the ARC. Now, ARC will conduct the process of securitization and reconstruction. In this unit, we are focusing on the first option, where the bank themselves enforces the security interest. The second option that is there, we'll be studying about it in the unit 15, in the securitization. Alright, so let us start. For the enforcement of security interest, there are certain conditions that the loan account must satisfy. Like, the loan account must have been declared NPA, that is beyond 3 years in the doubtful asset category, more than 3 years. Outstanding in the account should be more than 1 lakh rupees. The total outstanding dues should be 20% or more of the principal and interest. The secured asset should not be an agricultural land. Documents should be enforceable. They are not expired. They should be in the unexpired period of minimum 6 months. And if, let's say, there are multiple lenders, a consortium of lenders, then minimum 60% of dues outstanding of the lenders, that will be required for initiation of the SARFAESI Act. Alright, so once the account is classified as NPA, SARFAESI Act empowers the secured creditor. It is important that our financial institution is a secured creditor. They have taken a security and they got the charge registered with the SARFAESI. They will issue a demand notice to the defaulting borrower, the mortgager or the guarantors for 60 days, that they will discharge their dues in full within 60 days. Right? In the notice, the amount payable and details of the securities should be there mandatorily. Other notice like details of the default, overdue period, the date from which the account is classified as NPA can also be included. This notice can be sent by registered post, speed post, courier, fax message, email, even by hand delivery. Now, on receipt, if the borrower makes any representation or raises any objection, let's say that the due amount mentioned in the notice is more than what is actually due, they can raise an objection and the secured creditor will have to communicate their reply within 15 days. If, let's say, the borrower fails to comply with the demand notice within 60 days, they do not pay, then the secured creditor may take recourse to the recovery measures. They can take possession of the secured asset, they can take over the management, appointment of a receiver to manage the security interest, etc., and without the intervention of the court. Alright, so these steps can be taken. Now, the possession of the secured asset will be taken only by the authorized officer. They can take the possession by delivering a possession notice to the mortgager. They will also affix the possession notice on the outer door if, let's say, it is an immovable property. And within 7 days of taking possession, they will also publish the notice in 2 leading newspapers. One can be in English, another one should be in the vernacular language, the local language. Newspaper which has sufficient circulation in the particular area where the property is situated. Where, let's say, any physical possession is taken, Then also the authorized officer can make an application to the chief metropolitan magistrate. With their help, they can take the physical possession. Okay. Now there can be a possibility that on receiving the notice, the borrower or even the tenant, let's say, who is living in the mortgaged property, let's say the house, they're aggrieved by any of the measures taken by the secured creditor. They have the right to make an application to the DRT. Now, DRTs are established under the Recovery of Debts Due to Banks Act. This they will have to do within 45 days from the date on such measures were taken, right? Then, according to the Recovery of Debts Due to Banks and Financial Institutions Act, the DRT will dispose of the application within 60 days. If the application is not disposed, if the case is not solved, this can be taken to the Appellate Tribunal, DRAT. Even when, let's say, the order is passed by DRT, the tenant is not satisfied, then also they can make a higher appeal to the DRAT. So, if any person is aggrieved by an order made by the DRT, they can prefer an appeal to the Appellate Tribunal. Now, making an application to the DRT does not require any deposit. But when you are making a higher appeal to the DRAT, you need to deposit 50% of the debt demanded by the bank or determined by DRT, whichever is less. And this appeal can be filed within 30 days from the date of receipt of the order of DRT. This can be reduced to 25% also. So, making an application to the DRT, no deposit, 45 days, making an appeal to the DRAT, deposit of 50% or 25%, and within 30 days. Then, after taking possession, the authorized officer will obtain the valuation from approved valuer, and then they will affix the reserve price. Now, what is the purpose of taking possession? They are now trying to sell the property and help the bank recover the dues. So, the authorized officer will serve a 30 days notice. They will send this 30 days sale notice to the borrower, in which they will also mention the reserve price, right? So, the reserve price fixed the date, time, and place of public auction. So, basically, we are calling people to place their bids. The highest bid will be accepted and the property will be transferred to them. In the first auction, the reserve price should be fixed at 95% of the fair market value, right? If in the first auction there is no bidder who is ready to take the property at this reserve price, in the second auction, the forced sale value will be decided. It is a lower value. Again, every sale notice which is sent to the borrower will also be affixed in the conspicuous place. It can also be given in the newspaper. The sale notice may also be put on the website of the bank. 30 days sales notice in the case of first sale and minimum 15 days for the subsequent auctions. Alright. So the mortgager, however, has the right to pay the dues to the bank and redeem the property at any time before the publication of the notice of the public auction. If they come and they're ready to pay the whole amount, then the bank will not continue with the auction. They will return the property back to the borrower. Right. So this is the process which is followed in the SARFAESI Act. Now, SARFAESI Act empowers the bank without the intervention of court or DRT. They can directly take action. Now, if they want to take help of the DRTs, that also they can do. Why? Because under the Recovery of Debts Due to Banks and Financial Institutions Act 1993, the DRT and DRATs are established to act as apex bodies to settle the recovery issues, for helping the financial institutions recover their bad debts quickly and efficiently. Okay, so the tribunal is going to exercise their power, jurisdiction, authority in the particular area for which it is established. DRT is presided over by the presiding officer. The qualification of DRT's presiding officer is important. They should be qualified to be a judge of district court. Either they have been a district court judge or they're qualified. Plus 65 years of age is also there. Right? Other than that, other recovery officers will also be there to assist the presiding officer. The presiding officer or the recovery officer, they are not judicial officer. But whatever orders that are given by them, they are deemed to be orders given by the civil code. Right? They are judicial in nature. So they are enforceable like the orders of the civil code itself. And here also, if anyone is, let's say, aggrieved by the order passed by the DRT, they can take it to the DRAT. Okay. So DRTs will hear the claims of only the NPAs. They cannot hear claims of damages or deficiency of services or breach of contract. This comes under the ombudsman. Criminal negligence on part of the lenders. This also, basically, the difference between compoundable and non-compoundable cases. Right? DRTs have the right to appoint receivers, commissioners. They can pass ex parte orders when any application is received by the lender that this NPA has to be recovered from the borrower. A notice will be sent to the borrower. If the borrower does not make a representation, does not give a reply, then the DRT will take the decision based on only the documents, evidences given by the lender. This is known as ex parte order, and in the ex parte order, no further appeal will be received. They can also order interim orders, which are temporary orders. Apart from, they also have the power to review their own decision, hear appeals against orders passed by the recovery officer, and so on. All the evidences are taken by the way of affidavit. So the evidence is also recorded in a proper manner. Right. So what are the conditions to be fulfilled? We said that the loan amount should be 20 lakh or more in the cases of DRT. The provisions will not apply where the debt due to the bank is less than 20 lakh rupees. When the bank has to recover any application, they will have to make the application to the DRT within the local limits of its jurisdiction. Other detailed provisions are there, like if one presiding officer is there, they can also chair the meeting of another DRT. Cases can be passed or transferred from one DRT to another DRT. The DRT of another presiding officer can be appointed to see this particular case even if they're not in the jurisdiction. Right? If, let's say, any bank has already made an application to the DRT, another financial institution, they are also having an NPA from the same customer, they can join the application. Fees is also payable where the amount of debt is 20 lakh rupees and 12,000 fees is payable by the lender. Amount above 20 lakh, it is 12,000 plus 1,000 for every additional 1 lakh rupees. So if it is 21 lakh, then the fees will increase to 13,000. Subject to a maximum of 1,50,000. So this fees will be payable. The DRT will issue summons to the defendant. Defendant is the borrower. That within 30 days, they should give the proof as to why the relief paid by the lender should not be granted. They will be presenting a written statement, right? If the defendant does not give any response, the DRT may pass an interim order. Now, when the interim order is passed, the borrower cannot transfer the property, they cannot sell the property, dispose of the property. If it is done without the permission of the DRT, then what will happen? Criminal complaint can be filed and no counter claim can be filed by the defendant. This can be done by way of injunction or a stay or attachment as well. So the DRT will give the opportunity to both the sides to be heard. Then they will pass interim order, they will pass the final order for the payment of the amount. Alright, so notice will be sent to the borrower as well. Then any person, like we said, is let's say aggrieved by the order passed by the DRT. They can prefer an appeal to the DRAT within 30 days on depositing 50% of the amount as claimed by the creditor or determined by DRT, whichever is less. Without such payment, no appeal can be filed. And there were earlier provisions where even making application to the DRT, the deposit of 75% amount had to be done. It has been cancelled out. It no longer exists. Only making appeal to the DRAT, the deposit of 50% has to be done, or it can be reduced by 25%. Now, the DRT was presided over by the presiding officer. DRAT is chaired by the chairperson. The qualification of the chairperson is different. The period for which they hold the office is also different. Now we come to the modes of recovery. The recovery officer, once they receive the copy of certificate by the presiding officer that they can proceed to recover the amount, they can take the steps like attachment and sale of the movable or immovable property of the borrower. They can take possession of the property. They can even arrest the defendant. Let's say the defendant is trying to contravene. They are trying to sell off the property. They can also appoint a receiver for the management. Right? So, all of these steps can be taken by the recovery officer. Now, when the property is sold, let's say the value from the immovable property comes out to be 90 lakhs. One debt is owed to our secured creditor worth rupees, let's say 50 lakh. Another debt to the government is there. Insurance companies are also there. Unsecured creditors are also there. So what will be the priority? Doesn't matter whether how many people are there to whom the borrower owes a debt. The rights of the secured creditor to realize the secured debts will have priority. And when the property is sold, the secured creditor shall have be paid in priority over all the other debts of the unsecured creditor, even the government dues like revenues, taxes, cess, central government, state government, or local authority. So, priority is given to the secured creditor in the case of individuals as well in the case of insolvency or bankruptcy proceedings. This is there in the Act. So first the dues of the secured creditor will be paid off. Then whatever is remaining will be paid to the government, unsecured creditor, shareholders. There might be employees if it is a company who are not paid their salaries. So like this the arrangement will work in the case of DRT. Now the last way of recovering the dues is through Lok Adalat, which is the easiest, cheapest and fastest mode. But only those cases where through arbitration and mediation the recovery can be done, only those cases can be solved by the Lok Adalat. So let's say a case was already pending in a civil court and the civil court judge decides that this can be taken to the Lok Adalat. It can be done. Or let's say the bank themselves, they think that the loan amount is very less, we can take it to the Lok Adalat. Consent of both the parties is important. The order passed by the Lok Adalat will also be on the consent. So the mode of recovery for the Lok Adalat is by trying to reach a middle ground, a compromise between both the parties. Alright. So a one-time settlement can be put through Lok Adalat. So in the case of default, the award could be executed by the court. Then Lok Adalat is organized under the Legal Services Authorities Act of 1987, not the Lok Adalat Act. No such act exists. It is the Legal Services Authorities Act. Basically, to constitute some legal services authorities to provide free and competent legal service to the weaker sections, so that the opportunities of securing justice are not denied to any citizen by the reason of economic or other financial disabilities. So on the basis of justice, equal opportunity, the Lok Adalats, they work. Now, Lok Adalats can be established by four authorities or committees: National Legal Services Authority, Legal Services Authority for the state, District Legal Services Authority, and the Taluk Legal Services Authority. They will determine the Lok Adalat at such intervals and places, whatever is necessary. While also determining any reference, it is made sure that only a compromise or settlement will be there, and it shall be guided by the principles of justice, equity, fair play, and legal principles. So, criminal cases should not be taken to the Lok Adalat. Only those cases where arbitration is possible. Also, every award of the Lok Adalat is also deemed to be a decree of civil court, and no appeal shall lie in any court against this award. If a award is passed by Lok Adalat with the consent of parties, no one can go and make appeal to the High Court or the any civil court or Supreme Court. But we are referring to the NPAs. So where the loan amount is less than 20 lakh rupees, they are referred to the Lok Adalat. The plaint amount should not exceed 20 lakhs. So identify the NPAs in the branch where dues are up to 20 lakh rupees. Whether secured or unsecured, in the SARFAESI Act, only secured debts were taken. Here, unsecured debts can also be taken. The bank or branch will prepare a petition separately for each account. Then they will be referred to the usual Lok Adalat. The district or the Taluk legal services can also be approached. With the consent of the authority, the branch will file the petition. Then the Lok Adalat will be convened on the date fixed. They will pass the award with the consent of all the parties, right? The settlement can be made under the following terms: either a down payment of the awarded amount at the time of settlement itself, a full payment of the awarded amount within a short duration, full payment of the awarded amount in installments. So any of these decisions can be taken by the Lok Adalat. The most important factor is that the decision will be taken with the consent of both the parties. It cannot be forced on any party. Alright, and if, let's say, in the event of failure of the Lok Adalat commitments, then proceedings should also be initiated immediately in the court, or if it is, let's say, a transferred one, then the case will be sent back to the court. If the Lok Adalat is able to give a decision with the consent, then the court fee, if paid by the complainant, it will be returned back. Finally, the banks, they also engage the direct recovery agents for the recovery of loan. RBI has given guidelines. The agent should be belonging to an agency that has a good past record. Bank will ensure that the agents that are engaged by them, they carry out verification. Pre-employment police verification should be done. Due notice should be given to the borrower. Incentive to the recovery agents should be fixed, because if it is based on the performance, then they will try to use undue measures, force the borrowers, or they will try to blackmail them. All of these things should be avoided. So, what are the things should be followed? The recovery agent should be properly trained. 50 hours in case of graduates and 100 hours in case of non-graduates. The DRA examination should be qualified, minimum 50% in the DRA examination. There should be a notice period before taking possession, circumstances under which the notice period can be waived, the procedure, giving a final chance, procedure for repossession to the borrower, and sale or auction of the property. So these things should be followed. And with this, we have completed our Unit 14, the recovery of loans due to banks. And again, this is a very important unit. So you need to practice the mock tests as well. You need to have the exam specific notes. For that, you can join the JAIIB Super Elite Plan, which is the all-in-one plan. So you'll get access to everything here. Subscribe now and start your preparation, because your exams are very close now. that is all for today. Make sure that you like the video, you share the video, comment down below if you have any doubts, any queries from this unit, and subscribe to the Oliveboard JAIIB CIB English medium channel, because on a daily basis you are getting these sessions that are very important for your revision. So now I will see you in the next unit of our module B. Till then, revision is important. Keep revising, keep preparing, and all the best.